Welcome to Little English Studio, where English learning meets the inspiring stories of the world's greatest people. Today, we bring you the life story of Victor Hugo, the legendary French writer, poet, and thinker whose works continue to move the hearts of millions around the world. Hugo's story is not just about literature, it is about revolution, exile, justice, love, and the power of imagination. Victor Marie Hugo was born on February 26, 1802, in Besançon, France, into a world filled with change and turmoil. His father, Joseph Leopold Sigisbert Hugo, was a general in Napoleon's army. This meant that Victor's early life was marked by movement, discipline, and the strict demands of a military household. His mother, Sophie Trebuchet, on the other hand, was deeply royalist and religious, with political beliefs that clashed with her husband's Napoleonic loyalties. This early conflict between his parents' worldviews left a permanent mark on Hugo. He grew up between two opposing forces, discipline and freedom, conservatism and revolution. These contrasts would later find their way into his novels, where characters embody the struggle between authority and rebellion, sin and redemption. As a boy, Hugo was extraordinarily sensitive and imaginative. He began writing poetry at an early age and quickly revealed his deep gift for language. By the age of 15, he was already winning poetry contests, demonstrating a mastery that shocked even experienced judges. His mother recognized his talent and encouraged him, nurturing the dream that her son might become one of France's great literary voices. In his teenage years, Hugo declared boldly, "Je veux être Chateaubriand ou rien, I want to be Chateaubriand or nothing," referencing the famous French romantic writer. This statement captured his ambition. He was not satisfied with mediocrity. He aimed to stand among the giants of literature. At only 20 years old, Hugo published his first collection of poems, Odes et Poésies diverses, 1822. The collection gained the attention of King Louis XVI, who granted him a royal pension. This royal recognition instantly placed Hugo among the promising young poets of France, but Hugo's ambitions stretched far beyond poetry. He wanted to reshape French literature itself. During the early 19th century, French theatre was still dominated by the strict rules of classicism, rules about unity, decorum, and style. Hugo, however, believed in Romanticism, a style that embraced passion, imagination, and freedom. His preface to the play Cromwell, 1827, became the manifesto of Romanticism in France. It challenged old traditions and called for the liberation of drama and poetry from rigid rules. He was still in his 20s, yet he was already becoming the leader of a literary revolution. In 1830, Hugo staged his play Hernani. The premiere turned into a cultural war. On one side were the conservatives, who booed and ridiculed his rejection of classical rules. On the other side were the young romantics, who defended Hugo passionately. The Battle of Hernani became one of the most famous moments in French theatre history, symbolizing the triumph of Romanticism over classicism. Hugo was no longer just a poet or playwright. He was now a cultural icon, the face of a new artistic movement. During the 1830s and 1840s, he wrote some of his greatest works. Among them was Notre-Dame de Paris, 1831, known in English as the Hunchback of Notre-Dame. The novel told the tragic story of Quasimodo, the deformed bell ringer of the cathedral, and Esmeralda, the beautiful gypsy girl. But more than a love story, it was Hugo's call to preserve the magnificent Gothic architecture of Paris, which was being neglected and destroyed. The book was a sensation and sparked a movement to save French cathedrals. Behind his public success, Hugo's personal life was complex. In 1822, at the age of 20, he married Adèle Foucher, his childhood sweetheart. They had 5 children together, yet their marriage suffered as Hugo's career consumed him, and as he became involved in extramarital affairs, most famously with the actress Juliette Drouet, who remained his companion for nearly 50 years. His family life was also struck by tragedy. His beloved daughter Leopoldine died in 1843 at the age of 19, drowning in the Seine shortly after her marriage. Hugo was devastated. The pain of losing her haunted him for the rest of his life. In his poetry collection Les Contemplations, Hugo poured out his grief, creating some of the most moving lines in French literature. Hugo was not only a writer but also a political voice. Initially, he leaned towards royalist beliefs, but over time his sympathies shifted to liberalism and republicanism. By the 1840s, he had become a powerful voice in French politics, serving in the French Parliament. He spoke against the death penalty, against poverty, and for freedom of the press. When Louis Napoleon Bonaparte, later Napoleon III, seized power in 1851 and declared himself emperor, Hugo denounced him as a traitor to democracy. For this, he was forced into exile. Hugo spent nearly 20 years in exile, first in Belgium and later on the islands of Jersey and Guernsey. Far from silencing him, exile became his most productive period. He wrote some of his most powerful works, including Les Misérables, 1862. Les Misérables was more than a novel. It was a vision of humanity. Published in 1862, it became an instant success, read by millions across Europe and America. The novel tells the story of Jean Valjean, a man imprisoned for stealing bread, who seeks redemption but is relentlessly pursued by Inspector Javert. Around Valjean's story orbit a gallery of unforgettable characters: the tragic Fantine, the innocent Cosette, the heroic Marius, and the street children of Paris. Through them, Hugo addressed the great issues of society: poverty, injustice, revolution, and the possibility of forgiveness. Les Misérables was not just a work of fiction. It was Hugo's moral and political statement, a cry for compassion, justice, and reform. Its impact was enormous. It influenced debates on social justice, inspired movements, and has remained one of the most beloved books in history. Even today, through musicals and films, the message of Les Misérables continues to echo across generations. In 1870, Napoleon III fell from power, and the French Republic was restored. Hugo returned to Paris as a hero. Crowds gathered to celebrate his return. He became not only a literary giant but also a symbol of resistance and moral authority. Even in his old age, he continued to write, producing works such as The Legend of the Ages. He also remained politically active, defending human rights and calling for European unity. Victor Hugo died on May 22, 1885, at the age of 83. His death was a national event. Millions of people attended his funeral procession in Paris. He was buried in the Pantheon, the resting place of France's greatest citizens. Victor Hugo's legacy is vast. He was a master of poetry, drama, and the novel, but beyond his art, he was a voice for justice, freedom, and humanity. His works shaped French literature and continue to inspire people around the world. Through Les Misérables, the Hunchback of Notre-Dame, and his countless poems, Hugo reminds us that literature can be more than entertainment. It can be a force for change, a mirror to society, and a beacon of hope. Even today, more than a century after his death, Victor Hugo's words remain alive. Even the darkest night will end, and the sun will rise. Thank you for watching this journey into the life of Victor Hugo. From a young poet to a revolutionary novelist, from exile to national hero, Hugo's story is one of creativity, resilience, and the fight for justice. At Little English Studio, we hope this story not only helps you practice your English, but also inspires you to believe in the power of words and ideas.